very common group of colors that's usually used is a couple of blues, a couple of reds, and a couple of yellows, the primary palette. If I gave you that group of colors and said, do this game 3 times, you'd really understand here and here what that group of colors will do for you. So here we go. Here's my brush. So I'm gonna go this way, left to right, and I'm going to take each color, we've got 5 colors, and when I get that much color, I don't use black anymore, because it just it looks like you're mixing soot into your colors. And this color range, you can make black a few different ways from the actual colors themselves, and they look more correct with the other colors than black out of the tube. But were I to use black out of the tube with any of this, I always put a little bit of color into the black, so it isn't just black, so it has a purpleness to it or a greenness or something. So it doesn't look so foreign to the other colors. And that's what Matisse did, Picasso did that. That's how they got black to work in to what we would call those colorist paintings. That's how they got black to look like it works. Okay, so this row up here, one little blob of each color, and it's arbitrary which color I start with. So I'm gonna start with brown, or a burnt umber. And you still want a test strip. I'm gonna start with it over here. Don't make a square, don't make a circle, because those are designy things that are not the kind of marks we paint with. You may as well make a kind of a patch with your brush held the way we really paint with it. For me, it helps if I'm doing, say, three of these games, to sort of bookend the games by whatever color I start with. I put a splotch of it at the end too. So if I'm referencing these mixing games to look for colors or no, it just gives you a little bit of, oh, it was the one that had brown on both ends. Otherwise, they all look kind of like the same, even though they're not. Okay, what's the?
So I didn't realize that, so the brush is held flat, not the point, it's held flat.
That's how you draw with that. That's
Okay,
why I like
okay.
these brushes, because you can hold the flat and cover a bigger area,
Okay,
and you can draw with them.
okay.
What color shall I do next?
Do you have a yellow?
Okay, now when you're gonna go to a different color, I wanna really wash my brush out, and I touch the bottom of that thing. Because these bristles and the metal, they really hold water and they really hold pigment. So I gotta get it flushed out of there. I know to scrape this brush about 3 times, and it won't drip, but the bristles are loaded. So I know that's the right water control for what I'm doing. Okay, so let's get yellow out here. Yellow pollutes easily, so even when your water gets too dirty, it's gonna be dirty, so let's put it out. If I'm mixing yellow with other colors, I start with yellow first because it's overwhelmed easily, and you'll find that out. I got a little more water, just touch it. Okay, let's see what my yellow's gonna look like. I'm gonna put it here. Okay, which color next?
Red.
Okay, really wash it out, you know. Just pull some out from these are very strong paints, so I really just pull out from I'm kind of pulling out from the edge of it. I like to mix over here. And I really stir like you're making batter, because those bristles are so sensitive. If you just kind of go dip, 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 you haven't mixed well enough, especially when you start mixing more than one color. You've got to get them mixed up evenly.
But you're mixing it just to mix the red with itself, is
Yes,
that right?
but
Get
you
the
still
water
want
into
it evenly loaded in the bristles. Okay, which color next? Got purple and green left.
Purple.
Okay.
No, green. Do
Green.
green. Yeah.
Okay, green. That green is super strong. I didn't even squirt new stuff out because I knew that even the old stuff will reconstitute. The dry stuff will reconstitute enough. make them about this kind of, if we took a black and white photo, these are probably middle gray, maybe slightly darker. That's about the tone you want them at. They really show their hue. You make them too dark, you can't quite tell. You make them too light, and they just look anemic. So you got, I guess, try to get enough pigment in there for it to really show. Okay, purple's last. What now? I'll have to change this quickly. Okay, purple. It's accidentally squirted black out there, so I'm just trying to stay away from it. Woo! Ooh, this feels wet. Okay. Now the importance is you want to keep them lined up. Don't go. Keep them about the same size and keep them spaced evenly. That's important. Otherwise you might get a little lost. I'm going to change the water because I know I don't have enough. And so look what all those colors made.
Black.
Yep. The darkest ones will make black. Or you can get different colors of black.
Is that your
black.
music? Is that music? I think it's nice, actually. Oh, on the radio, I thought. Okay.
Okay. Right. This is a fun game. It's still surprising to me. I gotta mix this one and this one and put it right there, underneath clean space. Well, and it's a yellow. What do I say? Even though brown's first, I'm gonna start with a yellow and then touch brown into it because it'll just get overwhelmed easily. It's pretty it's a simply laid out game. It's not tricky. It's just, if you get spaces wrong or you go downhill, then the next rows get a little confusing. So just keep it straightened up. Okay, I gotta mix yellow and brown. Well, I do have a yellow puddle, but I'm gonna pull it out here. And I have some brown over here, so I'm gonna just take some. Ooh. Now, there's no right color. Obviously, that could change a lot depending on the ratio of brown to yellow. You understand that? I mean, I could decide, oh no, I'd like a little more brown in there. Okay, that's gonna change it. Let's go with that. I'm gonna add, I can tell by what I know that this seems just ever so slightly sticky. So I'm gonna make a water adjustment. I'm gonna add water, and this is how I do it. Everybody see this? Tip of my brush. That's how sensitive this stuff is. You don't go boing and you'll be way out of water control. So you just dip it in there a little bit just to make it a little more mobile. That's what I want. And I didn't want to add so much water that it'd be too much water and it'd run off and it would be too anemic looking. I'm just trying to get a little mobilized a little more.
It's kind of caramel.
Okay, now I gotta wash my brush. Okay, now I have yellow and red. Okay, I'm gonna take the yellow again, start with yellow because it gets overwhelmed very easily. Yellow, stir it, stir it, stir it, stir it. I don't need to go over to that red because I've got enough there to influence it. Just gonna take some of this. Ah, yeah. There we go. Oof, love orange.
That's great.
Okay, now I gotta do those two. Now when your palette gets too messed up, a nice way to do it is take a damp sponge and wipe off everything but your big spots. Because then you don't have a sloppy dripping palette from the sink that you gotta dry up before you can use it again. I did that, which is what I did for ages, and then I read that somewhere and went, oh, that's brilliant. Okay, but I do have enough room here yet. When I go to the red, really what I'm doing, I'm sort of circling my brush, and the top of my brush is sort of skimming past the blob of red, skimming past. I don't go in and take it out like oil paint. I'm not taking a blit because this stuff really stains. So I don't really need a lot of it. I'm just pushing up next to that pile. There we go. I'm gonna pull it out here. Oh, I think I need more than that. There we go. And it needs green in it, and I happen to know that green is super stainer. So I'm not even gonna go in there. I'm just gonna take some green. Look at that. I hardly took any green.
With the purple?
It makes it a crazy non-color.
That's weird.
The reason it does is because, see the color wheel? Green and red are opposite each other. And that's one of the main complementary color duo. Blue and orange is another one, the main ones. Violet and yellow are another one. And when you mix opposites, they go really neutralized in color. And who'd ever think green and brown would make green and red would make a weird brown? Well, it is kind of lavender.
Yeah, I'm surprised how purple it is.
Is that right? Yep, it's red, green and red. I think it's because that red and that particular green and that particular red, they head toward blue. They have some bluishness in it, that's why. If we had a different red, let's say I had that red and that was like a military green, it would not mix the same color. It'd go another weird dead color.
It's basically dead brown.
Yeah, maybe that's what it would be.
Are these 5 paint colors you're using, are those the ones you asked us to get?
Yes, they are.
Okay, very good.
And they are what's called a balanced palette, and by that I think it means not only the spectrum of color that they are, but how light and dark they are. And they're actually devised from a pentagon, a 5-sided thing that's placed on the color wheel. They're sort of colors picked from a pentagon, sort
So
of
the
a...
tonality is the same, the depth, saturation of the colors is the same.
Where they're picked on the color wheel, they sort of make a pentangle almost. And so if you were smart about that, you could tweak that pentangle and you could pick your own colors and have a balanced palette. I'm not that smart anymore, because this one I can't figure out where does the brown fit in. But I can see where those are almost, you know, they almost come in a square on the palette, like the yellow, the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, the purple, the red. They make it, so let's not go there. It's a balanced palette. I don't want to confuse you with all of that. Because the beauty of this is there's no math to it. There's no writing it down. You just have to know what your basic group of colors is. And then you start the extension, and I'm gonna have you do it 3 times. And every time you do the extension again, you just arbitrarily change the top row, and the colors will extend differently. And that's the beauty of it. You learn really quickly, just hands-on, what this does. Okay, I've gotta mix those two.
Are these colors, do these vary a lot by manufacturer? The same 5 colors if you do Winston or whatever we did? And...
Pardon?
Well, so I'm wondering if by manufacturer, these colors that you had us get vary quite a bit.
Blick's version of these colors are not good.
Okay,
They are incorrect.
okay,
I think that Cottonwell, if you can afford Winsor Newton, they're really the ones I think that are most correct, and most of these are all Cotman, which is their student grade.
okay.
But every once in a while, like that, I keep looking at that is not dark enough for alizarin crimson to me. And so I might, and I don't know if over years they changed their formulas a little bit. Okay, so I'm doing green and purple. Green, well, I got purple right there, so I'm gonna take just a little more from this up here. Who would ever think?
So that's, I'm sorry,
Blue, green and purple makes.
Normally, you cannot make blue, it's a primary color, but that green is so blue and that purple is so blue that they give you something that looks blue.
holy cow.
Of course, it can look more purple or it can look more green, depending on what the ratio is, but it makes a pretty beautiful color.
It is beautiful.
You just wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Now I gotta put purple and brown together. Okay, I happen to know brown's kind of a wimpy color, just like yellow is, so I'm gonna start with the brown. Where'd I put it? I think I put it here. And purple. It's almost time for me to wipe my palette off. And when I'm mixing colors and touching different colors, I don't wash my brush in between. That's too much trying to keep the water control right. But how do you keep your colors clean then? What I do is, I try to keep going around the outside edges of the blobs of colors and keep them as clean as I can for as long as I can. And when they get too mucky, I just squirt new paint on them. And I do the same when I oil paint. So it was brown and purple. That's black right there. Okay, I'm gonna put a little more purple into it. And the reason I'm washing my brush out right this minute is because that looks so dark, you're not gonna see what color it is. So I'm gonna wash the pigment out of the brush and take half that puddle and see if, there we go. I'll be able to, it's about like that. Boy, there's something on that. There's something on this, that's why it keeps bubbling up like that. No, it's slightly different. And that subtlety is really
You can see
nice.
the purple in it.
Yeah. I'm gonna wipe this off, because it would be a good thing to demonstrate. And this is why, when I have people get their equipment, you don't wanna be working on a tea saucer. A tea saucer is not gonna allow you to mix. You need a big palette. Okay, do this, squeeze it off, wipe my palette off. But I saved the blobs of pink, the big blobs, because they will reconstitute like the kits we had as a kids.
You know, that red looks so wimpy.
Pardon?
The red looks wimpy.
It does look wimpy, and you know, I'm not sure, I see that QOR, Daniel Smith's might be better, but it was $17 a tube, I said no. But I see that there is a brand called QOR, unfortunately, Columbia Graphic and Art Supply is doing a closeout sale on there, but that brand are really powerful pigments and stainers, and I almost bought an alizarin crimson. Because the alizarin crimson that I expect it to be, I expect the color to kind of spread out to be as dark as that, and it never does. So I don't know if it seems to me like they've changed the color a little bit. I recall it being darker than that.
I
when
think
you
the Daniel Smith is closer, because that's what I've had in the past.
Daniel Smith?
Yeah.
Is it darker?
Yeah, it's more intense than that.
Yeah, I might get it, because that really bugs me, but it works with these colors. Okay, third row. I've gotta mix those two, right? And sometimes when you try to go back and find the
They
old
use
puddle,
bugs sometimes.
one, you can't. Two, there's really not enough pigment in those puddles anymore. So, if you've lined this up right and you think, okay, I've gotta go back to the original colors to make this. Third row, right there, make a V, it's those three colors. See this one, third row?
So which, oh, I see.
Make a V, those three colors. That spot, make a V, it's those three colors. That's why it's important to line it up, so that if you have to go back to the original colors, you can find them. So I have to create